This is our monthly water system meeting. Called to order at, what time do you have?
10 to 8.
7:50. First thing we're going to do is read the minutes of the last meeting, which was March 16th. And does anybody have any comments about the minutes of the March 16th meeting?
No.
May I hear a motion to accept the minutes as
So moved.
Doug Robertson motion, second.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are accepted. Now let's go to the treasurer's report. Any questions about the treasurer's reports? Some of these are anyway, is there any questions about the treasurer's report?
Cindy, was that the water sample post, was that for, that sample that got rejected because it was late and they resubmitted the bill, or, I don't remember what that was about.
And slips for when you send them postage.
Oh, okay.
Joel, 581.
Good.
That was for
That's for the whole year.
2 months.
February, March,
Right,
or
there was a lot of storms.
January, February.
Right.
Well, probably the biggest thing there too is when had to get those hydrants
Right,
exposed
yeah,
to
Billy
it
Jolin also plowed out the hydrants.
a couple of times.
Yeah. We had a lot of snow this winter. So we should be able to put that money back into the sinking fund, don't you agree with that?
That'll be next month.
So we'll see that next month. Is there any questions about the treasurer's report? May I hear a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Alex has made a motion, and Doug has seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right. So, we have some delinquent accounts. We're gonna have to,
My knowledge is down to 11, right? Cindy, I collected from the canals and I sent her a CD.
what's that for?
This bill was a delinquent. I got paid, like, with a notice.
Oh.
I'm down to
Okay.
5 now, but I haven't gotten anything.
Who's that from? Who's it from?
Canals.
Absolutely.
That's your check from last time.
I think you gave a different check.
You're supposed to cash those.
Yeah,
We've got a check for
all
it.
right.
What kind of storage?
Where,
Try that one.
that looks good. All right,
It's been a long day.
so far. So tomorrow you're gonna have to shut off some people. All right. Is there any other water business you have to report?
No, everything's been going well. Test came back, the latest back T test came back fine. No real issues with the computer that I couldn't fix on my own, so.
Every time the computer gets a little burp, it calls Alex on the phone and he has to get onto the pump house and usually just turn it off and turn it back on.
And as luck would have it, it's usually on a Friday or Saturday night.
Right. But about 3 years ago, we spent $10,000 of a small sinking fund, which was left over from when they moved the water line. Remember when Route 7 subsided and broke our water line? So we bought new computers, because the computers that were installed in 1998 were from 1988 or something like that. But that's part of some of the things we have to do. We have many people here, so if anybody has anything they would like to open, meeting up to any comments that anybody has.
When do you think we could all meet again with ideas regarding the solar plant?
Well,
That would, enough time to give people time to put
Our
ideas
next-
together and that type of thing.
Our next meeting's
what's the date of the next first Monday in May? We're now on April 6th.
May 4th.
May 4th is our next meeting.
You want to send that out to Woodville again? Let them know.
A lot of people here aren't on the water system. They're just citizens of Pownal. And our meetings aren't limited only to water customers.
Okay.
But I don't quite know how to get in touch with everybody unless people,
Well, I know we were
Want to be-
taking email addresses too, so we can at least start letting people know that way, put up flyers like at Winchester's, the post office, some of the other places that they put up flyers about this meeting. I know people here are willing to help get the word out about the meeting.
well, we can, if people sign up on an email, we can make an email list. Walt, save you a seat.
All righty, thank you.
Ray, is fire district number 2, is that demarked? Is it around the post office and where are those
There
100?
is a demarcation, but I don't have the map in my file.
It's out that way? The water
It's-
goes that way?
The water goes mostly in the flats around Pownal Village. It goes to Winchester Store. It went to whoever would sign up for it in 1998. And most of the people who signed up for it were already on a previous water system that was originally designed as a fresh water source for I'm pointing behind you, there was a big mill on the river right where the bridge over the Hoosick goes at the end of this main street. And that mill's water system that mill burned down in 1903 or something like that, or it was closed down, and a guy named Murray Lewis got control of the water system and the piping and developed this kind of little suburbia around here and hooked up a lot of people to his system and ran it until he just couldn't run it anymore. As a private system, he didn't have liability, it was a open reservoir, it was, even if they tested the water and it was clean, 10 minutes later a raccoon could die and fall into the stream, so it was always a boil order. And Murray Lewis was just over a barrel. He didn't have liability, he couldn't borrow money to improve it. So citizens at the time, including this man whose name is Brian Quinn, on a plaque on the water tank, got together and applied for the $2.1 million or so that was eventually gathered to install this modern clean water system. 5 test wells were drilled. A test well was drilled up at where the water tank is, where the old reservoir used to be, but it's all bedrock. The geology of the system is it's like a big bedrock bathtub, filled up with gravel at the bottom, then clay, then more gravel, then more clay, then about 17 feet of what's called overburden or, till soil. And so if you're not over the bathtub, you just have to take your luck in the bedrock as far as how the water, but right. Over the bathtub, like for instance, I think the Haleys have a wonderful 50-gallon-a-minute well. They're in the same aquifer that our well is certified for 80 gallons a minute, which is like a 5-day pump test.
So this water goes up to the fire station?
The fire station has their own well. They're not on, but they use our water. The reason it's called a fire district is 34 fire hydrants. It improved the safety of the community by installing 34 fire hydrants. So that, that was part of what makes bureaucrats in Washington grant these grants and loans. But the water is clean, it's plentiful, and it's a different chemical signature than the river water. The river water does not feed into the water. Everything that happens on the surface is separated. This water is glacial water from how many thousands of years old. And it's pressurized, so it comes up. An artesian well is a well that has so much pressure that it bubbles out at the surface. This water doesn't bubble out at the surface, but it comes up in the pipe because there's more pressure than the atmospheric pressure that would push it down. And it's all charged by the water from Williamstown or from the bed of the Hoosick River.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
When we were down at the meeting site earlier, there was mention made that in case the grid shut down, there would be no power being able to get into the grid out of the system.
Right.
If indeed this goes, would it be practical to incorporate the system within so that we could feed power on those 3-phase lines down to our sewer treatment plant? And at least it could produce enough power that maybe we could run our sewer treatment plant in the event the grid shut down for 18 to 24 months.
There's generators in all the pump houses for the sewer system.
Generators are good, but as long as you have fuel for them. It's just an idea, it's a consideration.
I imagine it's all about voltage and amperage and things that electrical engineers, I can't say. No, I would like it, the darn thing to, here's the way our water system works. There is in some parts of it, it's an 8-inch line. In some parts of it, it's a 12-inch diameter line. And it's the same pipe that goes up to the water tank that feeds the houses. So if the pump isn't on, the pressure in the water tank goes into the people's houses.
Right.
But if the pump is on, the water goes up and goes right into the house if you turn your shower on. So it's not like a separate loop.
But I wasn't referring to the water there, I was referring to the power.
But what I'm saying is if
the backfeed power from that plant, this electric plant that we're proposing, put it into the 3-phase lines and send it, back to North Pownal, where it's all an existing infrastructure, to the sewer treatment plant that also has 3-phase. And you could run that sewer treatment plant with the electricity this generates, even though the grid is off. This thing will make electricity regardless of the grid
Yeah,
being on or off.
absolutely, and it'll just be.
And it might be nice to be able
Dumped
to tap
into the
into
ground,
the existing
essentially.
infrastructure and feed at least our sewer plant and keep it online.
That would, I can't imagine what Green Mountain Power would say about that, but I imagine they'd have an opinion.
If the grid went down for 18 to 24 months, which if they do it right, they can do and shut the country down, it's an extreme possibility, but it exists, then I think there will be a lot of concessions made to see infrastructure like the sewer treatment plant brought back online. And it's just a suggestion that in the construction phase, when these fellows put this thing together down there, maybe they make a provision so you can tap into that 3-phase that's already there, the lines, the infrastructure, and feed that sewer treatment plant. Maybe up to Tam, he's got 3-phase also on that same leg. It's just an idea.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
And that's a lot of, it's like Green Mountain Power infrastructure too, so they're incorporating to, you know what I mean, if Green Mountain Power's grid is down, I don't know how we or Green Lantern, you know, I mean, it could be looked into, but
Right.
where do we take over the controls
Right.
of another entity's infrastructure?
So you've got another facility going down here on Cedar Hill Road. Maybe between those two facilities, you could continue on your own, put your own line in, just to the sewer treatment plant. I think that, they're probably even grant money for that.
Well, we've told many tales of woe about how we don't have any money. Just one of the attractive things about this solar project is that the water system is putting no money into it.
Right.
The water system is not gonna own it, the water system is not gonna manage it, the water system is only gonna rent the land to the owners. So it's,
But as an added concession to get that position that they want from you, maybe you could throw this out to them, and they might be receptive to at least a portion of it. There may be grant money available to see that the infrastructure could be strengthened by putting some of that excess power down to that in the time of National Grid, you know, the shutdown, if it happens. Just an idea.
it's a good idea.
I made the suggestion, Bill, with talking with the developers about, how about giving us some backup power, some way to generate, you know, some storage for us in case the grid is down for an extended period of time, at least let us run our water system,
Right.
you know, and it,
We have about 5 days of
Yeah.
water in the tank,
Yeah, yeah.
as far, yes sir, Ralph.
Yeah.
Now, Ralph is a representative of Green
Okay.
Mountain, Green Lantern Development, so he has expertise to share.
Could
Yeah,
we
I just-
have Ralph's last name?
Mima, M-B-I-M-A.
Okay.
I live
Are you,
in Brattleboro,
oh, I see.
and I basically am the Green Lantern representative for the southern counties, Windsor, Wyndham, and Bennington. And a little bit of work I do spills over into Rutland and Orange counties as well. And I just wanted to share with you a few things I do know about battery backup and microgrids, because this is actually a hot topic. And I don't want to get too far afield here, but I was in Rutland last week, actually with a group. I'm a member of a subcommittee of the Brattleboro Energy Committee. I used to be on the committee, but my 3-year term ran out last summer, and we did a field trip up to Rutland, which is the solar capital of Vermont, and that's how Green Lantern has, or Green Mountain Power has characterized it. We visited a very large solar array that Green Mountain Power actually owns and has built on the old landfill at Stafford Hill. And what they've done is they've built a 2.2 megawatt solar array, which is about 4 to 5 times the one that's being contemplated for Pownal. And along with the array itself, they've also put in batteries. They have, believe it or not, a $6 million bank of batteries in several small buildings that look like 40-foot containers on concrete pads right on the edge of the landfill. And what they can do is, if the entire grid goes down, of course that solar array is still generating electricity, and it will charge up the batteries and continue to recharge them every day. And I think that they've got enough battery backup there that they could basically indefinitely run the high school, which would function as an emergency shelter. That's about it. And apparently this is one of the very first times this has been done in the United States. So it's still fairly early days, but the reason that we from Brattleboro went up there to take a look at this is that we're also interested in whether or not, with all the solar capacity being built around Brattleboro, whether Brattleboro could also have its own microgrid, so that if we had, God forbid, another Irene situation, we could keep the hospital, the fire department, the high school emergency shelter, Rescue Inc., which is a ambulance service. We could isolate those and keep those powered up with electricity, even if the rest of the grid went down. So, there's no reason why Pownal couldn't explore the same thing with Green Mountain Power. This is a new and emerging area.
Is your company also involved with the proposed plant down here at Cedar Hill Park?
No.
Different. Thanks.
What are plans for maintenance for the panels? Like, who's gonna take care of, cutting grass, pulling snow off panels, making sure everything's okay? I mean, do you guys have maintenance guys that are gonna be living here?
We contract with a solar array maintenance company, and there are a couple of different ones. I'm not sure which one will be picked here, but basically we have to make sure that the grass is cut, weeds are cut. Normally in the winter there's enough of a tilt on these panels that they shed snow, so you don't have to clear snow off them in the wintertime. If a tree comes down across a fence, if panels get damaged, we would, or the maintenance company would find out about this very quickly, and they would send guys out to deal with it.
So they'd be trained solar people, not just...
Yeah, they would be, and I know of a company that we have been talking with, I don't know if they would actually be the contractor in this case, called Main Street Power. And they're actually based in Colorado, but they have branches all over the United States, and they specialize in solar array maintenance. So.
And how often does that happen? The maintenance, I mean, how often a year?
I don't know what the mowing and weed cutting schedule would be. I think some of the maintenance would only be on a as needed basis.
And how do you keep the animals, the weeds down? Do you use any kind of pesticides or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. And there's a fence around it too, so that, the main issue would be just weeds and saplings and stuff.
Well, what about the animals? I mean, that burrow underneath, or, I mean, I'm just, anything that could.
You mean like chipmunks? I don't know.
Sure, anything that could burrow, eat, chew wires. I don't know.
Well, the kids with slingshots.
Yeah, what about an attractive nuisance of that it's just there? I mean, there's kids there four-wheeling since I've been here all the time. I mean, what about that and the slingshots and the throwing, whatever, I mean, breaking in?
I don't think we have any unique solutions for vandalism that, any other homeowner or business owner would have to do.
And how long has Green Mountain Power been in business? Is that, or no?
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern.
Yes.
We were founded in 2010.
And what if you guys go out of business? What happens then?
Well,
What happens to this array?
if we go out of business,
Uh-huh.
there still is an array that's producing there. It's a productive asset. And we have investors and we have lenders who want to make sure that they get their lending repaid and their investment repaid. So, we would step aside and somebody else would obviously step in to keep it going, because it would otherwise be a...
Is that in the contract, that there is a sure thing that somebody's going to step in case you guys do go under?
Yes.
It is?
Yeah, there's a whole section, for example, for the lenders, there's a whole lender cure section where, if we fail to carry out our duties or if we go bankrupt, the lenders have a lot of power. Mascoma Bank or National Life or...
And are they responsible for the breakdown after 20 years of taking these down and disposing of them?
Yes.
And cleaning up the area if need be?
Whoever owns it and operates it is responsible for decommissioning.
So the bank would take down these things?
Well, if that's, that's one scenario, but yes, if we were in bankruptcy and the bank had taken over, they would be responsible for decommissioning it.
And I don't understand how a bank would do that. How would a bank come in and decommission solar panels?
It would just be like a foreclosure. They'd probably they would probably try to sell it to somebody else who would run it as a profitable business. But that's in the language of the solar services agreement.
Whatever the contract that has been negotiated but that has not been signed includes successor owner clauses. If a baseball player signs a contract with the Boston Red Sox and then the baseball player is like sold or traded to the Oakland A's, his contract goes with him. So the contract that the Pownal Fire District would sign and the details of the contract would go with the array to the new owner. So anybody that took on ownership of this array, which is an asset or a thing that's owned the same way your house is or a factory building or something like that, the contract goes along with that. So the new owner would have to agree to abide by the contract.
And what if nobody wanted to do that? Then it would just sit there?
No, if nobody wants it, then there's a decommissioning requirement in the contract. All contracts.
And again, but if at that point, just say, nobody wanted it, then there's this decommissioning, then who does that? The town?
Whoever owns it.
Well, no, because now say Green Lantern is out of business, nobody else wants it. It's just a thought, I mean, that could happen maybe. Then who decommissions it? Who does that? Whose responsibility is it at that point? Is it the town? Does it fall back on the town?
It goes into a court case, and insurance companies argue with each other. There's insurance required in that contract for such an event. Every law, everything in our society is enforced by a court argument if it comes to that, you know, so.
Now, is there anything in that contract for the, not just because I do believe that the town of Pownal is going to be affected, but is there anything in that contract that for the direct people that are facing it and affected by that, in the case of catastrophe, in the case of fire, in the case of our property value diminishing, is there anything in that contract that protects us?
I don't believe there would ever be anything in any contract that has to do with your property value, because your property value is an agreement on a certain day.
Called safety bond. The safety bond it can be a clause that's included in a contract that if the investor and the company that's building it would want to really go through with this, and I don't know, they had 15 people that didn't want it to go through, they could say, all right, well, your house is in the proximity of this, and it would affect your land, or it would affect the resale of your home, and if you guys are willing to sign the contract, we will provide you a safety bond, which could be upwards of the retail value market of your house. They have this, it's such a thing.
At what point? At the point of the contract signing, or the point that you sell it 10 years later?
No, at the point of the contract signing, because once the contract signs, it's too late, right? They're not going to give money to us if we can't sell our house, because they're not going to know how it affects my house, right? But if there is a clause, right, in there that says, all right, well, if this will go up and their investors want to invest enough money in them, and say, you know what? We'll put a clause in there that says you got 2 years to sell your house, and if you can't sell your house for the retail value of it, of the appraisal at the time the contract is signed, then the safety bond ensures that the people in the surrounding area can get the money that they would have originally got for the house if that contract was not signed and that solar field was not there. It is such a thing, sir.
Interesting. Well, I learned something tonight.
So that's not in place? There's nothing like that in place. How about catastrophe? How about fire? How about if that tractor trailer rears off the road and hits into there and there's an explosion and a fire? I mean, it's possible. It's happened. I've read about it. And that catches fire across the street and our houses catch on fire. Is there anything that protects us, the people that are surrounding it?
What kind of protection are you looking for?
I don't know. What if my house burns down that I just bought? What if it happens? I mean,
Well, I
it's,
assume you have fire insurance and the.
so there's
water-
nothing in that contract for
You're not letting me
this?
finish, you're saying these things, but you're not letting a response out.
Okay,
So you
sorry.
have to,
I
we
apologize.
both have to
I had
have our
coffee,
turn.
I apologize.
The fire district has liability insurance
Mhm.
for various events. And it's by this group called PACIF, which is all different municipalities, towns, cities, water districts contribute to it. So there is insurance for damage to the panels, and there's insurance for any damage or liability that panels might cause. But Ralph, I guess I have to yield to you, or I'd have to yield to an insurance expert, because
I know you asked, our CEO is named Luke Schulenberger, and I know that Ray asked this question about 2 or 3 months ago, and Luke sent you an answer, and I don't know the details, but you know, that could be shared with anybody who's curious. It's about the liability insurance that we carry. So.
For the scenario that was presented, the person that was driving that tractor trailer truck's got some insurance.
yes, sir.
To change the subject a little bit, but maybe you can't answer me the question right now, but you're into this agreement with this gentleman for financial reasons.
Right.
And supposing this doesn't go forward, how much could I expect my water bill to go up to compensate for not having these people here?
One of our correspondents had suggested that if the quarterly bill went up $20, that'd be $80 a year. If you multiply 80 times 143, that's something like $11,000.
But
So-
you're only making 7,000 from this deal, right? Because
So
they
it
had to
doesn't
shrink
need
the
to go-
size of
Yes,
the
that
panels.
was because the board decided that we would require that no panels be installed south of the waterway channel. And so that cut down the, so that's a yearly thing.
So what's the
Well, is
amount?
it ticket money? I mean, do most people, what's it worth to have clean water come into your facility?
Oh, it's priceless. You can't live in your house
Yeah,
without
I
water.
mean,
I mean-
we're talking probably 22 cents a day if I break it down for 20, for,
Yeah, but 20 is double in what they're
Oh, I
making,
understand.
so you gotta break that in half to actually try to.
put it on
profit
top. But
on-
I'm looking at an alternative, it seems like we're going down just one path here.
No, no, we want to offer, so you weren't at the meeting before?
I've been there at all the meetings, I didn't go down there. but-
No, only for this, because we offered a lot of alternatives and they're willing to listen to
I didn't
our
really hear
alternatives.
any
Yeah, well, that's what they
actual
said.
Well, we're on the Mary Lewis system, I can tell you that I love the system, okay? After the Mary Lewis system, and this is nice. And it just seems like.
I could give you the exact number if I evaluate the balance sheet from the past 5 years. I can give you what it's gonna take to get them out of the red, if they are, or get them, or get us to a point where they need to, sustain the current budgets that we have, and I think that'll give you, but it's around what you said, I mean, $10 to $20, right?
It would be
fluctuating,
14, actually, I just did the math, it's 14 more per quarter.
Depending on, whatever it is that needs to be established for a budget to get to the point where you guys set that number. We have ideas, I know that it's just brainstorming, right? And I know
Why don't you read them out? That's why everybody's here.
it's,
This phase of brainstorming.
so the first one, and we were talking at the other site, and I can look at your balance sheets or however you guys keep your accounting for, I think 5 years is a good trend to give. So that might help. And also evaluating, after the trend analysis is done on the past 5 years, you can look at the interest rates, and then whether it's compounded, monthly, semi-annual, annually, whatever, to try to figure out how much the interest rate on the bond that you have, and then explore options about getting that interest rate lower. When you're talking about $400,000, even a few, percentage, portions of a percentage could help out immensely to meet the $7,000 or $8,000. So these things are things that I have experienced from my life. I've only been around here for 5 years, but we used to raise money when I was in the service. We did a 5K run, right? We'd go around, and I know you guys drive. You see all these cross-country college kids. You know, everybody's running around. You put out a flyer. You say, hey, we're doing an annual. We call it a fun run, right? An annual fun run. You get everybody to go around. You know, their family members, and get, you know, $10 a piece or whatever. You raise $50 a person. You get 20 people, you know, that are running it. It's sponsored at $50 a person. Not going to reach your 7, but I mean, between looking at the books, you know, between the percentage of evaluating what the bond is at, the fun run, it's an idea. We were, Don, I was looking online and found some stuff. There's tons of kids around here. And
say it again, please.
There's tons of kids around here. I mean, when we walk our dog and stuff, there's, you know, there's kids everywhere, whether they're running up and down on a 4-wheeler or just running around. And you get the fire department to
Do you mean the
put
fire
the trucks.
district, fire department?
The fire department. You get the fire department to let the kids, you know, climb around the trucks, or have some type of fundraiser where, you know, every little kid loves to, you know, hear the bells and whistles of a fire station. You know, you say, all right, well, we're going to have a fundraiser where you get, you know, $10 a kid, $5 a kid, and you bring in, you know, however many kids, and you let them, you know, you get a fire guy that walks around.
It's called the Touch a Truck program, and they do it in Albany, and they do it in Latham, and they do it all over.
They made $6,000
They make tons of money.
in one day.
You can get, you know, charge a family of 4, you know, $20, and the kids get to hang out with the firemen and see what they do, and it raises
Firemen would be
money.
glad to do that, to raise money for them, because they're in the same spot as we are. They're
Absolutely.
scrambling
But
for
it's
money
an
all the
idea.
time.
They never let us do it.
Because
They'll do it themselves.
there's liability issues involved with that, and to the point where, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but the fire department will not even flush
Yeah.
our hydrants anymore because of liability issues. So I don't think doubt they're gonna let kids climb around on the equipment. And maybe they do in other places that have different insurance and stuff, but I think, I'm under the belief that they just either changed their insurance policy or got a new carrier or whatever, but they're under much more strict limitations. And I appreciate the idea, and it makes a lot of sense, but I believe there would be liability issues
Well,
on
it would
that.
be worth having, I mean, and I would be happy to have that conversation with the fire department, because, you know, whether there's bad blood between people in the fire department, or members don't get along, or there's been a history of issues or liability concerns, a lot of times what you'll find is that if it's something that can bring the community together, and I know a lot of the folks on the fire department have kids themselves, I mean, this isn't just some piddly thing that you'll get $100 on. These
Yeah, right. I
things
understand what
make
you're saying.
thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And they do them a couple of times a year, and it's just one suggestion.
Yeah,
I guess
possibility.
to say, of
Appreciate it.
something.
So the next one is the fire department, and I for some reason I thought that you guys were affiliated, this is your fire district,
Yeah.
but you don't have access to.
No, the reason we're a fire district is because of those hydrants.
Okay, so, I mean, we can, it's, we were talking about the gambling that they do, right? They do the poll tickets in Bennington. Once a year, everybody, you know, they cook food outside, and in summertime they come down and you get everybody back where the fair is, and you have, you know, some type of raffles, or you have some type of, you know, poll tickets or gambling. Not gambling, you throw $5, you know, play blackjack all night or something, penny slots, or, I mean, penny antes. I'm not saying, you know, do anything illegal. I'm just, it's a way that, you know, somebody might want to get out of the house, and then, you know, the proceeds go to the water department.
So my 12-year-old son, and he was at the meeting tonight, I don't know if you saw him, but he had an idea when he was looking out over at the field. He said, well, why can't we all buy a brick and build a well, like build, you know, the fancy kind of wells, and put it over, you know, and have everyone in the town, or anyone that wanted to buy a brick, purchase the brick at a certain cost, like they do, I don't know, I think Bennington has it in the playground area, and everybody buys a brick. And you have, like, from the McKay family, And it's something that every time somebody drives by or sees it, they've been a part of that in some form or fashion. You know, I'm not saying maybe it doesn't go directly, you know, on the well, but I mean, this, again, is from a 12-year-old kid, but he said, Mom, wouldn't that be cool if they could raise money that way and include the kids?
I got a couple $100 down at the tannery in bricks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'm sitting here listening to all this, those are very nice ideas that you folks have. But just stop and think about this. You're a public municipality that provides a quality service to this community, and we're talking about having a fundraiser so you can keep your head above water. What the hell has happened to this country? This is pretty sad, folks. I think.
Well, we're trying to
I know
find
you're
an
doing that.
alternative to raising the prices, because at the price that we charge now, we have approximately 10% late payers, non-payers. We have to go through this really grueling system of shutting off water, then the people have to live without the water, then they have to find their money and pay, and it just happens every 3 months. We feel for these people. I mean, there's a lot of people in very different economic circumstances, but they all deserve clean water.
Absolutely right. I don't
But
agree with that. I don't have a
so-
problem with that aspect of it.
All these things are events, and I'm going to just tell you two things. One, the car show is canceled. Why is the car show canceled? Because the volunteers that ran the car show in Bennington, they just got old and no new people came in. If you get on to the Monday night fire department meetings, they're crying for members. If you go to the rescue squad, they're crying. They just aren't volunteers the way there used to be. And these are one-time things as opposed to a yearly rental, which works out to $700 a month.
Well, there are one-time things, but they could
But
generate
somebody
revenue
has to
every
run
year,
it. We're sending water samples in. We're fixing hydrants. We got enough on our plate.
I think what we're saying is that, I mean, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I would bring my kids, I would give you guys the money, I would come to every single one of these, and I would tell my neighbors to do the same if you had 2 of those a year. You know, yeah, are you gonna get rich off of it? But I don't think you guys are looking to make millions of dollars. You're just looking to have money in the kitty, so God forbid something happens to the water.
It's not God forbid.
You can
It's
pay
gonna
for
happen.
it. But we're trying to give alternatives. That's what you
You
asked
asked us to do. You asked us to give you ideas, and I'm only halfway down the list, and I think that realistically, I mean, I know that they take volunteers. I'll help. I'm telling you that I'll help do these things. I'm telling you that I have ideas that we can make. I'm telling you I'll look at the books. I'm telling you that I'll go and I'll find ways to try to make operational improvements on the budgets that you already have. I'll do what I can, and if I can't do it, and it's not possible,
You seem
you
to
guys.
imply that we're not doing that already.
I'm not saying that you're not. I'm trying to say that another pair of eyes it's not gonna hurt. I'm just trying to help because our eyes are gonna be on that. And I don't want my kids growing up across the street from that. I don't wanna be there. That's why if we can do something, or like I said, if we can put, things in place in the contract that we can get bought out at what I paid for that house and what I've already invested, I'm fine with it. You guys make the decision, you go on, we move out and we go on, or we don't, we work together. And I have ideas that I can do. I can help you with these, I can help you with the books, I can help you run these things, I can help you get to that point. I don't understand how you could tell me to give you ideas and then sit there and say, well, we don't have any volunteers, we can't do this, we're already looking at the books. I get it. But you have asked me to come to you, and I come to you, and I feel like you're not receptive to what I'm saying.
This guy right here, Jimmy Winchester, runs a fair for the kids every year at the fire department grounds behind the post office. It's a very nice thing, and without Jimmy it wouldn't happen.
It is without a lot of good people, but we used to raise $7,000 easily. We had bingo at the racetrack. We made our money there. Now I'm begging the town to pick up $2,500 a year. Never in the history we always had good flow.
It's hard.
We don't have the issue here anymore. used to have a ton of Little League teams. I would have 2 or 3. I had a basketball team. I had, for 25, 35, for 36 years, I've been sponsoring something.
Yeah.
There's no coaches, there's no movement of kids going to sports arenas. It's just like it's all drying up. This is a very, very exciting town when I came here in the 60s. And I just watched it coming down. I appreciate God. There's nobody in this God's earth that loves to do what you're saying. But you know something? It's like the car show. Now there's the Garlic Fest, I'm in love with that. It's the same old few people doing the same old few things. I'll be 80 next year. How long, you know, I look around me and see who's going to take on the fair. It's going to, one day. It's more than one day. It's 3 days before, 3 days after. You're always hustling money.
Did you just say you're going to be 80?
Yeah.
That's great.
Born at 36 and
You don't look
16s.
like you're 80.
I don't feel like that way. But I understand your enthusiasm. And I know that a lot of people in this room, they give you the shirt off their back. They're the greatest people to do business with in this whole community. We've done so damn many things for so long, and now I guess we're just getting old.
But there's new people moving in,
I
young
understand that.
people.
I understand that.
And we'd like to bring back some of that life into the town.
Hey, you know what? Come on. I'm welcome for it. I'm not negative.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would. It would be, that's what we're saying.
I don't think it gets what you're saying. You're just saying it's been the same old well. We've been going to the same old well. You got to put something back in the well if you keep throwing water out of it. And it just doesn't seem to be there.
You know, and I don't mean to show my ignorance because I haven't been here, you know, for as long as you have, and probably a lot of other people have.
Say it that way.
And no, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't want to not try, right? If I don't try and I don't bring these ideas and I don't sit here and I'm gonna have a 5-acre solar field out my window, right? So I need to be able to sleep at night and say, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do these things.
Can I ask one question though? Is this whole project, this solar array, 5 acres, is it only to raise $8,000 a year? Is that the bottom line? Is that the whole reason for this?
Well, plus saving the world and lessening our dependence on Mideast oil and Bakken oil and, you know,
But just for this, I mean, just for this town.
It's to make money for the water system, yes.
Basically, that's it, for about
Has,
$8,000.
has the Green Lantern shared with us what they intend to be making every year on their solar field? And what percentage of that we're getting?
Money, profit?
Yeah.
Sure, because when they went to the bank and said, I want a loan to put these solar panels in, the bank is paying for it. They had to tell them what they're anticipating on earning. Are they gonna share that with us?
I could go through some numbers right now if everybody wants to hear them.
Sure.
Yeah.
I bet they have investors too that are getting a 30% tax cut and then making probably at least 3% interest compounded annually on it. I mean, I would think that.
The simplest way to look at it is this way. As Ray was referring to, the original idea was to build a 500 kilowatt array, which is the largest you can build under Vermont's group net metering statute. But it turned out, for various reasons, that there wasn't room to even go there. So what we've been talking about recently is scaled back, and it's 375 kilowatts, which is 75% of a 500 kilowatt array. Now, one of the rules of thumb that we use is that a 500 kilowatt array in Vermont, at this latitude with the weather we have and so forth, can be expected to produce 875,000 kilowatt hours per year. That's the amount of energy in 1 year, with all sorts of seasonal and daily fluctuations, that one of these 500 kilowatt arrays delivers into the grid. If you take that number, okay, and knock it down by 25%, in other words, knock it down to 75% of that, because we're talking about a smaller array now, you get a number. And it's actually 656,250 kilowatt hours per year. That's basically, that's the yield, that's the product of this array each year. You know, if it were a cornfield, it would be tons of corn. If it were a dairy, it'd be a 100-weight of milk. In this case, it's 656,250 kilowatt hours per year. Now, what Green Mountain Power does is they would pay us 19 cents a kilowatt hour for that energy. They wouldn't actually pay us cash, but what they would do is they would credit that amount to the electric bills of everybody who was part of the group, all the different meters. The fire district, various towns, elementary schools, and so forth. So let me multiply this total yield number by 19 cents a kilowatt hour. Comes to $124,687 per year. Okay, so you could think that's kind of like the annual total revenue of the array. But according to the proposed contract, which hasn't been signed, it's just a proposed contract at this point, each of the off-takers, starting with Pownal Fire District number 2, gets to keep 12% of the credit value. So a way of saying it is that you're getting, for every dollar of credit you're getting against your electric bill, you're only paying 88 cents. You're keeping the other 12 cents. So that money's not coming to us. That's being shared with the off-takers. So if I take the annual revenue number, only take 88% of it, it's $109,725, okay? That's the annual amount of money that, in a sense, because we set up a special operating entity to own, operate, and maintain the system, gets to work with. Call it $110,000. That's what we get to work with each year. We have to pay off the bank, we have to pay off our lenders, because these cost about, $1.6, $1.7 million to build. So we have to pay off the loans, and we have to pay off investors, which Mr. McKay was referring to. And we also have to pay, we have to lease the property, and that's a relatively solid number. So let's say that's, what, $7,500?
Yeah, 7,500 if it's 375.
Okay, so I'm gonna subtract
That's the agreed.
Okay, so we're down closer to $100,000 now. That number has to pay the bank, the investors, it has to pay for taxes, it's got to pay for all the operations and maintenance, any kind of cutting grass and weeds and whatever sort of repair work has to get done. It has to also pay for just the administration of it in terms of billing and finances. That gives you a sense. We're in the ballpark now. And I can tell you one other number. I can't go beyond that because there are a lot of numbers that I would just be guessing at randomly. I don't know what we would pay the operations and maintenance contractor.
It's not over 20%.
Yeah.
So you're still looking at.
But there's also insurance. There are a lot of different expenses. It's like any business. But what I do know is that our investors, they're a mixture of what are called tax equity investors and cash equity investors. The investors, in a sense, are the owners. They're the equity owners of the project. They make about a 6% return, averaged over the 20-year lifetime of the array. So, that's another reference point here, and it just gives you a sense of, what kind of business this is.
Profitable.
Yeah, it's certainly
6% is a nice rate.
You're clearing after you pay these guys $7,000 a year. You're clearing at the end of the contract over $2.1 million. You're paying out less than 20. I mean, let's get real. Cutting grass, right? It's not going to be a $20,000 a year bill, right? So you're paying out less than 20%. You're giving the landowners $7,000, right? You're profiting. After all of that, you're giving your investors 6%, right? So you're giving them $6,000 on top of the 100 you make. So let's just say that now we're down at 70, right? Give or take. So after the 20 years, let's just say 50, okay? After the 20 years, you're still making $1 million and giving the town of Pownal $7,000 a year. You broke down the numbers yourself, sir.
Sure, but do you think that 6%, an annual 6% before tax rate of return is some kind of get rich quick scheme, or
it's a high return value for a stock, yeah. It is, over the course of 20 years, no doubt about it.
And this isn't your only one though, so if you had many, I
And you
mean,
may be getting more than 19 cents a kilowatt.
That variable
Or-
is absolutely
Sure.
going to change, you know?
No, that's not the case. I mean, that's limited by state legislation.
Oh, that could change.
So that brings up a good topic. So I don't know if folks are aware, but there's been a huge energy meeting that's been going on up in Montpelier for some time. They just had a huge meeting a few weeks ago where this is the whole topic of discussion because the state of Vermont is recognizing that there needs to be some solar siting regulations. And I actually was very lucky to get in touch with a few folks. Brian Campion, Senator John Rogers, and Senator Kevin McMullen. These folks are on some energy committees, and they are really excited that folks are having these conversations because it starts here. And next year, there will be solar siting regulations in place, they believe, that will say you have to have, you know, a certain number of setbacks, you have to be so far away from residential homes. So I'm also a little leery that because the state hasn't even really said, well, this is really important to us, it's important enough they're having these conversations now, and with the session almost ending, it's not likely they're going to get far with the bills that are in there right now. But, you know, even in my conversation with Mr. Botso, he felt like there were good places for solar sites, and there were other places that should be considered. So if this, you know, were to happen now, next year the state could come back and say, the law has changed. You know, now we, the state of Vermont, we have our own rules about where we believe solar is appropriate. We want to be solar responsible. There are good sites for solar. There are not so good sites for solar. And I'm just a little worried, you know, what happens if this comes into play and the state comes down next year and says, no.
Well, the way that works is that whatever the law was when a facility is sited is the law that governs.
Speed is gone
Life
now.
of the
The racetrack went under a program called Speed, and that's done. They're in a, now you're moving into another, it's Reset is the name of it. And it does a lot with the, what we're talking about, your carbon credits, the selling of these credits that they move around. And Vermont was caught kind of red-handed, looking squeaky clean and selling our reset credits to Connecticut and some other places who have a high carbon tax. So Speed's gone bye-bye. They're into this monster here, Reset. And it's very generous to allowing us to sell to other states rather than just keep them among ourselves. Because we really are a carbon-free state for as far as having these credits. They're very well used and they're spread around to the people that use all the nasty coal and oil. So
My point is that there's folks that are, you know, that some of the folks in the legislature are looking at this, and when I said that we were having these meetings, they said, good. You guys have to sit down and say, what is appropriate solar siting areas for Pownal? Just like Rutland had to do. Rutland, you know, that was a huge issue. Where was appropriate solar siting? Rutland has some agreement as to where they think solar should go, and I really wish that we can have that same type of agreement, and whether that would come from the board, or maybe, you know, maybe even the Pownal Select Board might come back if they know that pressure's coming down from the state to have good sites for solar. I just think that it's important to recognize that there's stuff happening up in Montpelier about the very issues that we're talking about here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask this gentleman a question, if I may.
Please.
In your breakdown of the numbers, I didn't hear any mention of federal subsidies, federal loans, federal guarantees, federal supplements. Is there any of that involved in this project?
One of the incentives that makes it possible to even attract private investment into these types of projects is the 30% federal investment tax credit. But anybody, I mean a homeowner, any business that invests in weatherization, renewable energy and so forth can take advantage of that. So that's a very common, that's one of the most common things that stimulates investment in renewable energy around the country, from very small to very large projects. That's the main one. But there's no federal subsidy.
But it's a federal tax credit.
A federal investment tax
30%.
Well,
Yeah.
if Joe Smith owes $1 million in taxes and he invests in a solar project, he invests $1 million in a solar project, then he gets $300,000 off his tax bill. That's what a tax credit is. You have to find people that have what's called a tax credit appetite. People that can't hide their income and have to, you know, like a bank or something, insurance company.
But something very similar is the way almost all affordable housing is financed now in the state of Vermont. Affordable housing tax credits is very similar.
And also Vermont adds a 7.2% tax credit onto the federal 30% tax credit. So there's a...
The Rutland money was primarily when the Green Mountain Power bought up the other power company. There's $21 million laying on the table, which was supposed to go back to us, the ratepayers. And then there was a nice $14 million came out of Yankee that was supposed to go to us. So it looks like Rutland's the chosen town to be Mr. Powell's place to look good without money. Without money.
So since you already have to go with a smaller array, which means less money for you guys, have you looked at other places here that you could actually do your full 500 and not aggravate all the neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, we're looking for sites all the time because there's a huge amount of demand for this type of thing. You know, just today I was at BVSU and BRSU, the Bennington Sheriff's Department. I mean, there are many different public entities that stand to save money on their electric bills by signing up for a solar array. So I know that there's land in the racetrack area that's north of the existing array that could also potentially be built out. But that's you know, that would be a separate array for other users, I think.
Right now I'm trying to have a concert there, so I...
Oh, yeah.
Can I just ask you a question, and if you think that it's more of an opinion question, you know, I hope that you still respond, is do you feel that using up agricultural lands or open lands or even cutting down trees is still a good way to go about utilizing renewable energy? So for example, when you look at, and this land is in, this particular area is land that there is wildlife that comes through, you know, before the original plan you said the trees may or may not be cut. But I know in other areas trees are cut, you know, the land is displaced, wildlife is displaced. How does that really correlate with renewable energy instead of saying, well, let's try to use brownfield sites, landfill sites, other unsuitable lands, rooftop solar? I'm trying to see how we're being green when we're kind of, like in Bennington, they're cutting down 14 acres of wilderness to put up solar arrays. And just would like to get your opinion on what you think the benefit is of doing that to prime land.
Well, I'm not sure what the value of my opinion is. I have to sort of step outside of myself as, you know, Ralph, I'm a Green Lantern, and just give you my personal opinion. But my personal opinion would have no bearing on this particular project, because this particular project is on land that, first of all, is already open, and second of all, has a particular use that limits other uses. Like you couldn't put a parking lot there. You couldn't grow crops there and use any kind of herbicides or pesticides. So there's already a fairly narrow range of things you could potentially do with the land that we were just at earlier tonight. So leaving Pownal Fire District number 2 and just looking in general at the solar development industry around the state, you know, again, this is really, I'm happy to share it with you, but it's irrelevant to the particular question here. You know, as someone who works in the industry, obviously I think that, you know, we should be working with gravel pits and brownfield sites and old airport runways and, you know, existing industrial land that's already open before we touch any kind of standing timber. And there's a lot of open land that could be potentially used for solar sites. one of the big issues is that three-phase power, which runs along Route 346, doesn't reach a lot of the open land where you could potentially put up a solar array. And it's pretty expensive per mile to extend three-phase power. You know, I think what I'd like to see is more of a discussion with the state legislature about creating some sort of incentive to expand the transmission lines so that, you know, in a way, the solar siting reaches the most, or the least disruptive locations. But I think that that's like a whole conversation in itself, and it involves a lot of spending on infrastructure. I personally would also oppose, you know, cutting down 14 acres of you know, of mature forest, not necessarily virgin forest, but mature forest. I think that would be that'd be inappropriate.
Mr. Chairman, a question for Rob?
Well, before you ask that question, I want to clarify from the Lauzon McKays and from Donna. Essentially, you object to this because you see it as ugly. Is that right?
No, I essentially
That's not the
object
only
because
reason,
it gets
no.
ripped off. I don't think that the risk and benefit, I mean, I said it earlier, the risk and the benefit do not equal even close. The benefit is dramatically lower. The amount of risk of putting this field up is high.
And what is the risk?
Risks are plentiful. The
I
risks,
mean, I just want to hear it.
the risks are, you know, to the nature, to the wildlife. The risks are to my children, and the risks of, you know, putting a solar field on top of a well with unproven facts and data that it's not going to harm my children. I don't want them to be the 20-year project. And I understand that there's another one already from the company that's been in business for 5 years, but I don't care, right? I don't want my kids to be that experiment. I don't want the town of Pownal to be that experiment. If something goes wrong here, it's my kids, but it's everybody. It's everybody that's on that well. And I get that you and the board believe that the risk is lower, but to the people sitting in this room, I believe that we believe that the risk is higher because of not only that.
Can you enumerate some of these risks? I mean, to say that your kids are through the wildlife are diverted. I mean, your house and my house used to be home to raccoons. I mean, they're diverted all the time. This is like a couple of acres, but what are the risks again?
So
I mean, the specific risks to your children?
the specific risks is that there are no studies, 20-year studies, that show that having a solar power plant on top of, you know, this area isn't going to be harmful to the drinking water. And it's because those studies don't exist. And we're saying to you, you know, I think that what you're saying to us is, well, it's safe. You know, here's why, because solar panels are passive and it's safe. And I'm saying to you is that I just need you to prove it, that for that length of time and all of the other issues between the train, you know, the traffic issues, that for 20 years or 25 years, whether 20, that it's safe for my kids to drink.
Just the trains and the vehicles, regardless of solar power, create a huge risk to the well anyway, so that...
So the risk is already up, right? I get it.
Right. Well, with regards to the traffic and the trains.
It increases, it's adding risk to already risk.
But these panels don't give off anything.
Can I ask the engineer, do you have anything to say about like the risks? Are there risks living near this in a residential neighborhood as an engineer?
Just asking us. I need to see the plans, but where's it gonna tie into the line?
There's a three-phase power for a pump, and then next pole north, there's three-phase power for the sewer pump.
Right. The pole that was very close to where we were standing talking is where the three-phase transformer.
More towards the north side. Well, that's right in the middle where we were standing.
Right, yeah, and there's a
Pretty much
pole right
there.
there, yeah. And then there's another one down the end, closer to Mac Mullen, there's another pole down on that corner.
Again, there's three-phase power
Where
to
are the
Mac
panels
Mullen.
made? Where are the panels made?
Are they made in America?
I don't know yet which panels would be considered. They could be made in China, Canada, Germany, Japan, or the United States.
Because there's been a lot written about the ones made in China, how they don't pass the muster that they do that are made in America. And they break down. They break down, they leak cadmium and lead, and so when would you know that? I mean, before you sign the contract, would you know that?
Probably not.
Cadmium, and I make ceramic art. And they're
I know,
used
but
in
they have,
pottery
but these are the
glazes,
ones
but they're
that
not
can go in
used-
and
But
leach
this is
into
not over
water.
the water, you don't do ceramics on that, and that's a big risk, and there are proven things of that.
There is a lot.
Especially the ones from China.
Yes.
So again, the risk, another risk that he doesn't even know where they're going to be before this is in place.
Have you read about the Chinese solar panels and the risks with them? You should look it up. There's a lot of information.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Certified?
What's the benefit? I can give you risks, right?
$8,000 a year.
$8,000 a year. The benefit is $8,000 a year.
Every year.
Every year.
$700 a month, every month.
Every year.
It's like a rental.
I
It's not a
understand.
one-time thing that depends on volunteers.
I understand that you guys give your time, and I get that, you know, that I believe that you're trying to do the right thing. I completely understand, but if you guys would pay water, that would be half of your profit, right there. Half of your,
If we would what?
if you would pay for the water bill, like everybody else does, that would be half of the money that you're gonna raise for $7,000. If you guys paid the $450 a year, right, that would be half, right there. And I'm not asking you to do that. I don't think that that's fair. You guys give your time. I understand, but I'm just trying to.
Times 450 is $2,000.
Okay, so it's not half, right? And I'm sure there's more people that are on the board.
No.
And that that
Well, it's a
pay
quarter,
for it.
it's a quarter, it's
And-
something towards the
okay.
7.
Right, it's a little bit more than a quarter, right? But that, I'm just trying to put into the gravity of the situation of what they're actually giving you, right? They're giving you what you guys would pay.
Some of us don't live on the water system.
I get it, and that some of the people in here don't live on it too. I'm just trying to put a perspective on the number. If they're profiting, even if they're profiting half, and my numbers are wrong, and they're profiting half of $1 million, and giving $7,000 to the town.
Well, you want a profit on your house. Here you saying you want to guarantee a profit on your
I
house.
do not.
I mean, everybody does,
I don't wanna
everybody
guarantee a
works.
profit. I want to
something.
get paid the investment that I put into it. And by doing this, there's a possibility that I might reduce it. I'm not trying to make money. I'm trying to get back what I paid. That's all. Fair market value.
Do you have any figures on what a raise do to housing costs across the street or in the areas? Have you seen anything?
I've done searches, and I've not found anything that demonstrates that proximity of solar arrays reduces property values. I haven't.
They had one in California that had a 35% drop in that, but that was one that I found.
To compare Vermont to California.
Well, it's only because it's been around there longer. I mean, they've been doing it the longest, which is where,
I think it's really important to remember that although everybody, you guys have your opinions about solar, and, this gentleman himself, he lives, you're off-grid with solar, is that there are just some folks who feel very uncomfortable with this. And I kind of feel in some ways like, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I kind of feel like it's being brushed off, our concerns about the safety. I have 2 kids, 12 and 3, that I'm very worried about drinking this water. I don't know where you guys are going to be in 20 years, if you're still on this board, if you're wherever. If I stay here, my kids are going to find out what happens to having solar power plants across the house and on top of the water that they drink. And I guess I'm just looking for you guys to even acknowledge that you can understand that concern. As a parent, I don't know if you guys have kids.
I do.
And I'm not a scientist, and I haven't had 20 years experience with solar panels.
Yeah.
So forgive me if I come off as being overly concerned, but when it comes to water and protecting our water and having source protection areas, I feel the same way about my kids. And I wanna make sure that the water that they drink, just like you guys do, is safe, and I don't have that guarantee.
That's why there's a buffer zone around the wellhead for water. And if you could find some studies from California or someplace where they've had solar for a long time that support some of your concerns.
And I'm asking you to find some too that support this project, that
There's
support
none
that
either
it's
way,
okay.
sir. There's none either way. They don't have any, that's why before I was stating that it's the 20-year project of my kids, because they don't have it. If they had it, believe me, I would come with the documentation that says, you know, this is what I could possibly do, these are the potential risks. And my risks would be higher to explain to you, but they don't have it one way or the other.
But it's been around in California for more than 20 years.
Maybe
On
they
top
do.
of drinking water?
Maybe they do, but I
Well, any toxicity, I'm sure it's in places where they've done studies as far as if there is any toxicity.
they put them on ridges. They have a lot of them on ridges because the way the sun is out there.
I'm just saying, you know, if you're bringing an actual, something that we can grasp and rather than a perspective
You're
or,
right.
or this or that. I mean,
It's okay. You're absolutely right.
We will.
Because this is all conversation now, and it's all, I mean, you really need to have a meeting where you have very concrete evidence.
Right.
Exactly.
Because without the evidence, it's really hard to address a speculation.
It's the
Exactly.
same way though, sir.
But it-
There's no
it's the same
evidence
for
either
you.
way. If I can't find something, that means that you can't find anything that tells me it's gonna be okay.
Have you really looked?
Right.
Honest, let's be honest with each other. Have you really looked?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I
It's-
called the University of Vermont.
She
and
spoke
they
to
couldn't
senators,
even-
she spoke
they
to, I mean,
can't-
you,
there's
we're.
no
But that's not California, that's what we're talking about.
University of Vermont,
Okay.
there are no studies, ever that show what a 20-year solar power plant on top of water will do to the people who drink that water, who bathe in that water, who grow plants with that water. There's nothing.
But it's not gonna be on top of the water again, like I said, there's a buffer area on the well.
Do you happen to know, I was under the understanding when we were on the board that there's a buffer around the well, and then there's also like more buffers.
Yeah, there's a secondary area.
There's a secondary buffer, and the way I was understood that those could change from time to time as they increase, say, instead of just this first buffer, it will increase out to where you can't do anything. More feet all the time. I was under that understanding that over the years the state or whoever will say, now it's this big, you know, as opposed to the minimum buffer. And can you build, and it's all right to build in the secondary buffer, because the plan that I just looked at quickly was like you were like right on the edge of the, all the way around that well buffer. In other words, could the state come down and say, hey, now we're enlarging this buffer?
Believe me, the state comes down a lot. and
Yeah.
says
Water Supply
lots of
Division
stuff.
has pretty much.
So they could
large-
increase that
large-
buffer larger,
Yes, they
right?
could.
Yeah, and say, these panels are coming down now, or?
I mean, this is just a, you know, proposal of trying to do something.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you about that.
Yeah, no, I
You know what I mean?
was-
Yeah. The Water, you know, Supply Division will definitely look at this,
Yeah,
because they're on us constantly for
Right.
monitoring.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know they were saying that they could at any time change that buffer thing and say,
Yeah, I'm
"No,
not
we're
saying-
capturing this."
Yes, no, I'm not trying to promote,
Right.
degrade, I'm just trying to say, absolutely,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? But
So it
they're,
could-
but they're
it could
gonna
be
look
more.
hard at this too, and they're kind of responsible in some way, I would think,
Mm.
for ultimate decisions here.
Right.
It's a hot button issue right now in Vermont.
Yeah.
The Public Service Board,
Right.
they're gonna rubber stamp, they're gonna say, okay. I mean, when we went through the biomass situation down there, we all felt like, oh my God, Public Service Board's gonna come in and tell us we have no say. The Creechy analysis makes this gentleman not, if we were doing an Act 250, the Creechy analysis would say what a normal person would think. You're not a normal person because you're a neighbor, you're a player, you have some input into it. It's catch-22. You can't be crazy because you know you're crazy. And the Creechy analysis is scary. But that you'd be shut out of this in an environmental hearing because you're not a normal person. How you would see it as a normal person. All the rest of us are normal people, except for the neighbors, because they have to look at it. So So the public service boards, well, they're gonna be, you guys aren't gonna make this decision, really.
Right.
We don't make any decisions, we follow the law, we have to enforce the laws of the state of Vermont as far as delivering water and managing the water system.
Just like we do at the Legion, we have to test our water, send it up there at 2:30, make sure it's there, and we got slapped on the hand the other day for missing the mail.
Isn't it nice?
Oh, they're nice people, yeah.
I'm sorry, sir, but I think that they do hold the power. I think they do make the decision.
Oh, I hope we do.
Without
That's why we're here.
It wouldn't go to the public review board in the first place. Once it gets to that point,
okay,
it's out of control, right? But it doesn't need to get to that point, so we could stop it before it's all right. Until
that's why we're here.
I have a question from Bill and a question.
I can appreciate everybody's concern about contamination, but don't we test this water periodically?
Absolutely.
Monthly. Well, there's certain tests that are every month, some that are every 3 months, some that are every 6 months, some that are every year.
If contamination shows
We
up.
pay for all these kits, we mail it to a Endyne testing company, we pay for the service.
Yeah.
It's part of what we pay.
So what happens if contamination shows up, then what happens?
If it's caused by these solar panels, the people that own the solar panels, insurance company will step forward and you'll get a new water system somewhere.
What happens to the kids who get sick?
The kids won't get sick because it's tested.
They said that in Hinckley, California, when they were putting chemicals into the plants that they had, the power plants, and when they came back and they were full of, you know, it wasn't overnight. It was years and years later when kids were developing leukemia and different cancers that, oh yeah, well,
This is a solar installation, man?
No, that's La Quinta. La Quinta
This is a
school
solar
in
installation.
California.
Was the thing in California a solar installation?
No, it
What's
wasn't.
that? We're not talking apples for apples.
What we're talking about is kids' health. And I
That's
think
right,
that we can all
exactly.
agree.
That's why they test the water
And I think we
periodically.
can all agree that in 20 years, you don't know what the effects are from having it across the street from you
test it every
drinking the
month.
water.
Man, they
I
test.
think you're gonna have to do.
We
different
already know
tests.
the
Are you
results
gonna
of
do
lab
radiation
tests.
testing?
This
You're
on
gonna do
top of it.
radiation testing?
All right.
Yes, they're aware of radium in this valley, and there's quite a lot of
I
it
think
over on
there's
the
no
hillside.
radiation testing on the
Wonder if that's
site.
gonna increase cost of that.
Could you make your statement, please? You've had your hand raised.
Thank you.
I thank you, Bill, that's a good point, that we're tested all the time, and we pass.
And then that's in the contract, that if the water comes up,
No,
that
that's
it's...
separate, we test it anyway.
No, it's in the contract that if something was to happen to the water, that would be completely revamped, the whole system.
You'd have to have an install.
It would be in the
not in the
permit.
contract.
It's not in the contract?
It would be in the permits.
Huh.
Permits.
What's in the contract, ma'am, is that the water system prevails.
Uh-huh.
It's the paramount thing here, the water. And if
Right.
this doesn't work, right? Am I right, Ralph? Oversimplifying things here a little bit?
What? I don't know,
I mean,
I don't know what you
it's
said.
designed so.
Primary use of that property is
Yes.
to protect the water source.
Right.
And this is an ancillary use that can provide money to help protect the water source. But if anything is done by the solar installation that damages in any way the water source or the water delivery system, then it would have to be corrected. That's in the
By
contract.
who would go? Oh, by...
I'm sorry, how often did you say you tested the water? Because there was...
It depends, we test it monthly, and sometimes, like, every month we have to test for bacteria.
Right.
Okay, that's one test, and then depending on the year and how it falls for, whether it's in 3 years, this particular chemical test or whatever, so there could
said
be
it
times,
varies.
3 times in a month we'll be sending samples out. You know, in a given month, but most of them it's just once a month for
So,
bacteria.
I mean, I'm just saying, like with the, you know, if there's contamination of whatever, cadmium, arsenic, whatever, I mean, I think that you'd have to test more often because, you know, a kid 1 month drinking cadmium or something, you know, well, that's what it is. It's like, I know you're gonna you'll test often, but we just wanna make sure that's that.
If there was indeed a life-threatening or some kind of, they would shut us down and say, you've gotta find the source of the contamination, and then it has to be addressed accordingly. You know, I mean, this state, you know, there's guidelines, hopefully, that are in place to protect all of us. I'm on the water system too, drinking it every day.
Right.
You know, I can't make guarantees.
No, that's Yeah, go.
Please, thank you. So just a question, are there any examples, I know in the past there have been locations where people allow their rooftops to have panels mounted. Do you have any ideas, has that been done anywhere in Vermont where instead of, you know, in a concentrated location, they've been spread on? It's something where people don't necessarily have to, programs where people could have panels mounted, it would affect their bills. Here in this case, maybe for example, and this might not be realistic, but could people in this area, could that be an option? Would it, and it would be more expensive or less expensive if they were mounted on roofs and a distributed pattern, so.
Oh. Well, if they were scattered around, the cost would be significantly higher because rather than having, you know, one big concentrated sort of bulk array, you'd have lots of little ones, and they would each have to have their own, well, their own connections to the grid, their own transformers, their own inverters, so there'd be a lot of duplication of equipment. Yeah.
Okay, with respect to Mr. Lounsbury's question about being able to utilize any of these in the event of a grid problem, I know some newer panels have microinverters and it might facilitate their repurposing.
You mean for local offtake use?
Yeah, is that something that has gone into the design instead of just having a battery backup where they could easily be utilized?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, you know, most of us have never experienced an outage for more than a day or two, you know, with an ice storm or something like that. And people kind of looking longer term, a bigger picture, say, well, you know, what if the power's out for a month? In a situation like that, things would be so extraordinary that the state government and the power company would be doing things that we can't even imagine right now because they're completely outside of whatever contracts and permits we have, you know, just to deal with the situation. So I don't really want to speculate about that. But, you know, I do encourage everybody to look into the whole microgrids thing because it's something that Green Mountain Power wants to pursue. And I think that they're starting small in Rutland, but they're looking at ways around the state to create other microgrids. Because, you know, all of this distributed generation, and you mentioned, Mr., was it, what was your last name?
Winchester.
Winchester, that's right. You mentioned reset, but I think one of the, this is also called H40, it's a bill that's currently in front of the legislature. One of the other reset features is they've set more specific targets now for the Vermont utilities to hit certain percentage targets of increasing reliance on renewable energy. So, and also another part of reset encourages distributed generation, which is what these arrays are. And so with more and more renewable energy and more distributed generation going up around the state, not just solar, but, you know, hydro and so forth, there's going to be more and more power that is fully functional, even if the grid goes down. And so people are, I think, more and more going to ask the question, well, is there a way that we can use this? You know, why should we go without electricity for essential services if the grid's down? So that's an emerging area.
Bill?
Back to where we were a few minutes ago, as far as insurance companies and so on, you as a municipality have an insurance carrier for liability.
Yeah.
Are they aware of your proposed construction project? They have no problem with it?
They suggested some language that was incorporated in the contract.
Okay.
Other than that,
They're still willing to carry
they're
it?
okay with it. It's not something new to them from Pownal. They insure government entities all over Vermont.
Sure, in similar situations, I think, or at least they're aware of this.
I had lengthy, like hour-and-a-half conversations with the town manager of Waterbury, Vermont, and the town manager of Chester, Vermont, both of which Waterbury has a functioning, as of December 31st of last year, solar array on their wellhead acreage. Chester, they're starting to build it next month, and so they reassured us that it's possible and that
Did it change your premium?
Their prudential boards aren't worried that it's in any danger to anybody.
Did
or
it
the
have
water.
any, will it have any impact on your premium?
There was not mentioned. No.
Is that the same same type of setting where they have theirs? Is there?
No, they're different settings. Each one is different. I have a, here's the array of Chester, I think it is. Yeah, Chester solar. And there's plantings along. But they have larger acreage. They have like 15 or 16 acres. And most of the complaints in Waterbury were that they were so-called polluting a pristine nature preserve with this installation. So was it, I don't know, the Waterbury wellhead was a borderland with a preserved forest area. So people that hiked in the forest were raised objections on that.
Looks like theirs is well off the road too, that's why they might not care. Looks like it's not gonna be abutting.
The actual well is right there, it's just right off the map.
Oh yeah, but I mean, and that's even more. I mean, it seems like it's far away and it's also off of the main road about more than out here for you.
Yeah, of course, it's not a demo. No.
Can I ask a quick question about the monitor? Is there, so I had to get monitored for radiation before. They used a TLD.
What's a TLD?
It's, I want to say it's
What's being monitored? What's your question about?
radiation coming from any of
Well,
any
it
of the
just
fields
doesn't
at all.
apply. There's no radiation involved. Do you mean like gamma rays? Like the kind of radiation that gives you cancer?
Those are mechanical rays. Electromechanical.
Yeah.
Anything equally through here, puts out waves.
So
Radio
we
stations,
have-
everybody.
But they're already all over your house.
Yeah,
They're
you-
coming out of your TV. They're the
Yeah,
radio.
not the radio waves, but I'm just asking in general, is there monitors that are put in these fields to see if there is anything harmful being emitted? Like I said, a TLD is I think it's called a
Dosimeter. I used to work at the atomic plant, so I know what you're talking about.
You know, you wear the TLD to make sure that you haven't been exposed. Is there anything with that plant that has,
Gamma rays.
you know, a way to monitor if it is putting off anything bad, whether it's in the water or in the air?
You're talking about nuclear, you're talking about
Radiation.
nuclear radiation and fission. I mean, this is a solar panel.
There's no nuclear radiation coming from the
This
solar.
is totally different.
There is solar radiation.
There's radiation though, right? It measures the microns of radiation, not necessarily if it's nuclear or, I mean, there is, you can stand out in the sun, right, and it would measure up something, right?
Yeah.
Not a problem.
It wouldn't register at a dosimeter in the sun.
You're talking about electric fields?
Yeah.
EMFs or.
Just radiation
EMF is
in general, I didn't know if
electromagnetic.
it came off it.
Yeah,
or not. That's all.
The way our cell phones are, they cheat.
Do we know what kind of noise level comes off of the
Inverters?
transmitting
Well,
station? What is it called?
I mean,
Cell towers.
No, the actual
Transformer or whatever.
thing, like
Imagine
when
if
you, in
you
your
went,
mobile,
put
in your
your-
mobile home, in the
you
mobile
went-
home thing, when you have the thing that converts the AC to the DC.
No, the inverter.
The inverter, yeah, so there's like a large inverter, right? And do you know what that would be in decibels, or?
I don't know off the top of my head how many decibels. It will hum a little bit during the day when the panels are actually
I don't
producing.
know how loud that would be, would I hear it from my
But-
house across the street?
I couldn't swear to it, but there is data about that.
do you mean from the sewer pump?
No, I already hear the generator from the sewer pump. The actual,
It's the transformer.
Transfer.
The-
You can
yeah,
go to the
the-
racetrack.
We can go to the racetrack.
the
transformer.
yeah, the inverter, the actual inverter,
They hum.
there's like a large inverter, I understand, that
An
sends the power.
inverter changes DC to
Right,
AC.
right.
And everything that's in the lines is AC.
Right,
So
so there's I assume there would be some.
It's 60
noise
cycles,
level
or you can hear that.
Yeah.
I
There's no
can-
question about it. It's a question of how well insulated it is against the noise.
I can read you from the Cleaner Energy
What's your
Results question and answers about ground-mounted solar voltaic systems. It's a Massachusetts document, but it's applicable to any. The question is, do the inverters, transformers, or other equipment used as part of ground-mounted solar PV create noise that will impact the surrounding neighborhood? Bottom line, ground-mounted solar PV array inverters and transformers make a humming noise during daytime when the array generates electricity. At 50 to 150 feet from the boundary of the arrays, any sound from the inverters is inaudible. Parties that are planning and designing ground-mounted solar PV can explore options to minimize noise impacts to surrounding areas even more. These could include conducting pre-construction sound studies, evaluating where to place transformers, and undertaking appropriate noise mitigation measures. Most typically, the source of noise associated with ground-mounted solar PV comes from inverters and transformers. There also may be some minimal noise from switching gear associated with power substations. The crackling or hissing sound caused by high voltage transmission lines, the corona effect, is not a concern in the case of solar PV, which uses lower voltage lines. That is, sometimes when you're walking a power line thing, you can hear
The static kind of.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, there's more, but
That particular article, I think, is what you sent me, right, Ray?
yes.
They also have a lot of information about wind turbines, and they got in a lot of trouble, the folks that wrote that, because they said the turbines were safe, and then 200 residential homes, there were kids that were getting sick. I have some information, I only have
we
like one
can't talk
copy, but
about
I
wind
can
turbines.
send it to you.
It's not
But it was the same as solar, they said wind is good too.
Right.
We just don't know enough, is the thing, we just don't know, for it to be in a residential neighborhood.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
How about the rest of
So the next meeting is when, did you say?
you? May 4th.
Okay, when do you send out the water bill? April 15th.
April
Okay,
15th.
so give people a couple weeks to,
They have a month to pay.
no, I mean to get the notice about coming to the meeting and having ideas and things like that.
Well, it's always an open meeting, so you don't need
I
an invitation.
know, but, no, I'm just saying that way, but you said you're gonna put a notice in it about the meeting. This is what we were talking about outside. Is letting people know that there's a meeting and to bring ideas about raising money as opposed to just putting a solar plant there and getting the money.
We can just include that in the bill.
But that I'm just saying, was asking when the bill went out to give people enough time to get their bill, go, okay, we need to think of some ideas about raising money. If they want to come to the meeting, they can come to the meeting.
All right.
I know one thing, what a wonderful baby. That baby does not need a feed. I've been watching that baby all night.
May I hear a motion to adjourn?
That's almost enough to make you want to have one.
No.
Again?
Second.
Again, Eddie?
Not quite.
Thanks, Bill, for coming.
Thank you all for your contributions.
Take care.